Hello, welcome everybody to this talk. Nice to see you all. Today's talk is called, I have to look to remind myself. Once you discover this, your reality starts to shift. Okay, so what do I mean by once you discover this? Yeah. How to explain? We have to go right back to the beginning of what I mean by this. So, in society, most people think that they are a name, that they are a body, that they are their past, they are their future. They arrived in this moment from the past and they're going somewhere in the future. And that's never really questioned. That's just who you are. And that's considered by most people in Western societies as a soul that lives inside the body. And then when the body dies, you move on to another realm, whether that be heaven or another place, you move on. That's a Christian idea. Some people are atheists and just believe that the soul dies with the body. But often they imagine themselves as a body. So when they imagine themselves as a soul moving on, they imagine themselves as a body. So they are somebody. Somebody. Yeah. And that's a really interesting idea, that you are somebody. Like, listen to the word somebody, a body. Because we actually say my body. We don't say I body. We don't say I am the body. We say my body. So there is something in our language which implies that the body belongs to you. The body isn't who you are. That isn't something that is yours. That is you, I mean. It's something that is yours. It's very interesting. We even say that about personality, like my personality. Like, we don't say that is who I am. We say it's my personality, just like my handbag or my ring. We speak about it as if we own it, not as if who we are. But yet internally we believe that is who we are. And because we've been told this so many times, and because we've repeated it in the mind so many times, we energetically feel like that's true and that there is something solid in here that we are. So energetically we feel like we're something inside the body. And then we have this voice, this thinking voice inside the head that is always kind of narrating everything that's happening. So there is the I am going to the shops. I am buying myself something. I don't like this person. I like that. Oh, what shall we do now? So this voice is always talking, and it seems like there is something in here that's speaking, and something that is us. And we're kind of speaking to ourselves. So this voice is speaking to you, and then you seemingly speak back, although it's a bit unclear which one is exactly you, but there's this conversation going on in your head. And it feels like that is the soul and that is the doer. So in science, they think that the decision to, say, take a drink, this is amazing. So the decision to take a drink is made 6 seconds prior to it actually happening. So me picking up that and unscrewing it, that begun in the body 6 seconds prior to me doing it. Isn't that crazy? So I'm saying that sentence, and 6 seconds prior to that, the body has already decided to do it. Then what it comes with is what we call this ego, which says in the head, I'm going to take a drink in real time. So 6 seconds even before I'm going to take a drink, there has already been an impulse to do it, which is kind of like an insanity. That's crazy. That's so divine. And then the person is always telling the story as if it's doing it. So it's like 6 seconds prior to this, there had been a choice to take a drink in the body somewhere. I don't know where. there had been the beginning, the program saying, okay, take, drink. And then 6 seconds after that, the mind is like, I'm going to take a drink. And thinks it's doing it in real time, and that is who you are. That you are someone that is doing and has free will. And to me, and a lot, like I say to me, I mean, that's even like a really existential idea, because if we really question the idea of doership and the idea of you and my body and my personality, then who is it that says to me? It's just formality, it's language. Lisa is attempting to be, what's that word when you communicate? Like attempting to be, make sense, to be relatable. But it's not even to me, actually. That's not the truth of it. Who is the me? But in a lot of scriptures, so in Hinduism, in Buddhism, in Jainism, in Sikhism, I even think in Christianity and Islam and Judaism, but it's just maybe more hidden in those, they believe, like a lot of the religions believe and preach that this separation, this one that's speaking inside of your head, claiming everything, is actually suffering, is actually what creates human suffering. And that while that's there, you feel separate from life. But if that were to dissolve, then you would experience what you truly are, which is wholeness, which is this. So when I say when you realize this is what I'm pointing at. So in Hinduism, Buddhism, they speak about that this life is one. It's not divided. So non-duality is not two. Some people get very pernickety about that and say it's not even one. It's beyond that idea, so it's not two. So we can only speak about it in the negative. But words. Like, so... Yeah, I forgot where I was going with that, but it will come back. Because it's not me doing it. It will come back when it's ready to come back, the thoughts and the words. So these religions say that there isn't two, there isn't someone, and that this is suffering, this separation, this belief that you are the thinker inside the head, which is located behind the eyes, and that you are alive as that. And that is not true. What they point to is that you are alive as consciousness. Just so for those that are like wanting to get onto the neo-advaita bandwagon and tell me off it's like, no Lisa, don't you realise it's not consciousness either? Which, yes, I get a lot on my videos. That is true as well, because it's not consciousness either. However, we start with consciousness. But when you really go into consciousness, it all begins to get eaten away, and then what you're left with is you cannot speak of what you are, but it's not divided. But we start with consciousness as a pointer. And then, like everything, it all gets sucked into the black hole. And then you're left wordless. You're left in the unknown, but as the unknown. So, yeah, if we start as consciousness. So in this moment, what you are is awake, is conscious. That is what you are. You're awake. And that awakeness, consciousness, is with you everywhere you go. It's with you if you go and live on a cloud. It's with you if you go in an aeroplane, went to the moon, went to Australia. If you are in an argument, if you're at peace, if you're meditating, if you're not meditating. The awakeness is always there. You cannot have an experience without consciousness. Consciousness is the fundamental to experiencing. Awakeness is the fundamental to experiencing. That is the necessity. Everything else is second. My personality, my thoughts, my feelings, my sensations, my foot, my nose, my hair, my friends, my family, my homeland, my country. Everything else is second. Our language is pointing to this very gently. So what is it always primary in experience? And there is a consciousness, an awakeness, which also comes with its lover, beingness, a feeling of aliveness. These two are here in every experience. You cannot go to the shops without consciousness. How would that look? How would that happen? You're like going to the shops and buying an evening meal, but if you're not conscious, how could that happen? I don't mean like self-aware. You can go to the shops without self-awareness. I mean conscious. Like conscious as in like if you get knocked out or fall asleep, there is consciousness in sleep and in knocked outness, but we'll just go with that. I mean consciousness. Yeah, it's amazing how in the West we often don't even know what consciousness is. Like that. Like I am conscious. So consciousness comes first. So you can actually go to the shops and not have you. You could go to the shops and have Alzheimer's and completely forget about your life. You could go to the shops and have an arm chopped off or a leg chopped off. And you could still go to the shops. You could go to the shops if you've had all your money taken away. You might not be able to buy anything, but you could still go to the shops. You could go to the shops if you've lost your job. You could go to the shops if you've been publicly shamed and everybody hates you. You could go to the shops if all your family are killed. You can still go to the shops if you've got no clothes, no shoes, no status. You could go to the shops if you've had your gender changed. However, you cannot go to the shops if you don't have consciousness. How would that be? I don't mean personal awareness. I mean consciousness. How could you go to the shops without consciousness? What would that look like? Like, try and answer it for yourself. Like, if I was not conscious, could I go to the shops? It's a little bit like the koan, but not as unanswerable as this koan. If a tree falls in the forest and nobody is around to hear it, does it make a sound? But it's this one's more answerable, I feel. Answerable. Yeah. Sorry, for all the people that aren't first language English, I'm really speaking fast today. I'll slow myself down. So consciousness and this beingness, a sense of aliveness, is first, is prior to everything. But what is not prior to consciousness is who you think you are. But yet who we think we are is what we spend most of our time in. And who we think we are is something which goes along in horizontal time. Who you think you are always exists in past and future. Tony Parsons would say, me is in time. In English, me is in time. We spell it T-I-M-E. So me is in time. So me is M-E. Yeah. So you can only imagine yourself in time. So even though you can go to the shops without you, so you could go to the shops having forgotten you, you can have bits of your body missing, your family missing, your job gone, your house gone, your possessions gone. So everything you consider you, your memories of you, You can go to the shops still. But yet you can't go to the shops if you don't have consciousness. But the person still thinks, I am the person in time. I am the person I imagine. So consciousness comes first. Consciousness is what you are. And consciousness, and it's also its partner, which is the I am. Consciousness is a really interesting word, and throughout the years I've changed the way in which I use it, because just happened so many years I've been speaking about nonduality. And so many different teachers use it in different ways. So there is personal consciousness, and then there is the big consciousness of who you are. So personal consciousness is not even necessarily self-awareness. There's also self-awareness. Self-awareness is when you can think about yourself. So a lot of our people in society aren't really very self-aware. You know, they can be screaming at somebody because they feel shame and then projecting onto the other person and screaming at that person to try and get away from feeling shame. So a lot of our society isn't very self-aware. But personal consciousness is the ability to move attention. So you can put your personal consciousness on your nose, you can put it on your toe, you can put it out in the world, you can put it on the body, you can put it on sounds. So you can seemingly move personal consciousness. And a lot of traditions speak about focusing the personal consciousness. So putting the personal consciousness in itself, putting the personal consciousness on the breath, putting the personal consciousness on the I am. So this personal consciousness is often, for most people when they're asleep, mixed in with the person. So that movement of attention and your thoughts are intermeshed. So the thinker feels like it's conscious. The thinker feels like it is that personal consciousness. It is that ability to move the attention. And it kind of rests near attention. Like, I'm going to listen to some music. I am going to meditate. And then it moves its personal attention. I'm going to walk in this direction. So they're often intermeshed. And one of the stages of awakening is when those two separate. And then I think this is what Nisargadatta calls witnessing consciousness. But I'm not always sure about his terminologies. I think, like me, he also changed the way he speaks. And then he also was translated into English. So witnessing consciousness. And what happens here is it's when you separate from the thinking, thoughts, feelings. And that can be something that comes and goes, like you're sometimes separated from your thoughts and feelings, and you're resting in watching the thoughts, the feelings, the sensations, but there's still suffering appearing. You're witnessing it, but there's still suffering appearing, but you're more detached from it. You're not getting so involved, you're not getting so drawn into it and lost in the story for days and days. And as this begins to get seemingly deeper, although know that all of this is a story in time that eventually can be chucked out. So this is all a story which eventually begins to get eaten up by nothing, into the big black hole, nowhere and nothing. So the personal consciousness separates, and then there's a beginning to notice that personal consciousness is still, it's silent, and when it's resting in the I am, so when it's pairing with the I am, there can begin to be a loving feeling, a blissful feeling that arises. As this begins to happen, you then begin to go deeper and deeper into the apparent consciousness. And then it stops being personalized and it goes to the big consciousness. And the same with the I am. The more that's being rested in, the I am stops being personalized and goes into the big I am. And what I mean by the big I am is the unlimited love of who you are. And what I mean by big consciousness is the unlimited love of who you are. Yeah. People call it all different names, like light, love. And in the way, it stops being consciousness. It becomes much more mysterious. On one side, you could say it's nothing, it's totally empty. And on the other side, you can say it's full, it's total love. But yet, and this is the seeming stages that happen. And sometimes you don't go through stages, sometimes there's just awakening to everything at once. Sometimes there's seeming stages and there's flip-flopping, there's going in and out of something. Eventually what happens is that thinker that believes it's in the control, that personality structure, becomes ghost-like. So a lot of its complex thoughts begin to disappear. And then it just has more of a basic personality structure. So it can still have trauma, it can still have personality stuff going on, but it becomes a lot more see-through. It's a lot more just in the moment and gone. And it goes into the background. And what comes into the foreground is this unlimited nature of who you are, which we could call unbound love. And that is, I feel, what is freedom in this life. Is that movement from being a limited entity that's experiencing to being this unbound love or infinite nature experiencing, or God experiencing. And then after that happens, there's still more that happens in the personality structure. So the personality structure will then begin to relax more and more into this. And the old seeking patterns, the old karmas will begin to get more and more evened out, so you align more and more with love. But that to me is like an endless movement that can happen in the human form. So that to me, a human never becomes enlightened. The human can always expand more and more to love and light. But there is seemingly a change that happens from being that to not being that. And that is what I describe as the end of suffering. So going back to the title, once you discover this, your reality really starts to shift. Yeah, once you begin to awaken to this, that there is something else but you, then reality really begins to shift. And your head is kind of in the tiger's mouth. You can no longer escape this anymore. You can no longer get away from this. Yeah. Nice. So that is that. I'm just going to see if I've got a different clip, because something about this dress is not allowing my my microphone clip to hang on. But you can get ready with your questions. There we go, that one's better. Yeah, you can get ready with your questions. If you have a question in Zoom, please put your hand up. Yeah. And you can write a question in Zoom or in Telegram. Please know that I take preference though to hands being up, and that this is recorded onto YouTube and so anything you say will go live and be recorded onto YouTube. However, your video won't go onto YouTube. And yes, this is also the time when I do advertisements as well. Yeah, there's not such an urge to do that. And we have to follow the urge. Yeah, basically, if you're Australian or in Asia, there is a book club that you can sign up to that gets priority for Asian and Australian people, because normally it doesn't work time zone wise. If you're European, the Americans will be asleep, but if you're a European, you can sign up from Thursday. We just give a week to the Australians and Asian people from Australia or Asia to sign up. Yes, and there's also still some places left on my retreat in Southern Europe in June. If you want to join the Telegram community so you can ask questions in these talks, then you can find out how to do that on my website, my live streaming page. Okay, that was my compromise of doing the announcements. Very short and very quick. Okay. So, Sam, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Sam.
Thanks for that introduction. That was a really beautiful introduction. I enjoyed listening to that. My question is a bit about how you describe it as love, and I I think I know kind of what you mean by that. Because basically for me, what happened, I was just standing, this must be, I don't know, months and months ago. I was just standing in my kitchen in the flat where I used to live, and I hadn't really listened to or watched or even thought much about non-duality for quite a while, maybe a couple of years. I seemed to go through phases of really getting into a teaching and then not thinking about it. And suddenly I'd been through something, a breakup, got really hurt, and then I started listening again to a couple of different teachers, non-duality, and suddenly I had this experience where it all really resonated with me, everything I was hearing, much more than before. And suddenly I couldn't locate myself at all, and I suddenly didn't know myself as the person like you describe. I used to really know myself, or think I used to have a concept of myself instead of just experiencing myself. And suddenly that was gone, and I couldn't find, it was really strange feeling. I couldn't find like what I used to be anymore. But I kind of would describe it more looking back as a bit more like an empty looking was just what came through. As at the time I was really into I'd started listening more and more to actually it was just before, but after that I started really listening more to teachings of Roger Castillo, and I think I remember right, he describes it as awareness, and that was easier to for me than the word consciousness for some reason, but I can see how they're both kind of describing the same thing. But this awareness, it was just an awareness that was there, and like a live awareness, and that's but what I didn't have looking back so much was the sense of I am, the beingness wasn't really there. And I think that's to do with my body. I wasn't really feeling my body, and I've got like problems, twisted up spine and stuff like that. And that was, maybe I had a blockage, I'd say, to feeling the body. And over time, I kind of feel that I am and the beingness more and more. And with that, I think maybe I can see why you would call everything love, because maybe the love feeling comes from that. But I'm just wondering how you mean, you must obviously don't mean it in like a way of personal love between anyone. I just wonder if you could talk more about why you, just because I've not heard many other teachers describe it as love and like falling more and more into love.
Yeah,
Maybe you mean an openness or something, I don't know.
yeah. So for me, I would also say there is this empty looking that happens. So I've often used like empty looking. Yeah, and Nisargadatta, who was Ramesh's teacher, he would say awareness too. So, but somehow I came out calling it consciousness. That's just the way it goes. So yeah, some people relate better to different words. So it's always different. But yeah, there's this empty looking. And this empty looking isn't limited. It's all places and no places. It doesn't have a start or a stop. It's watching itself. It's seemingly watching through this body. So when the body turns, the world looks different. But it's, if you imagine it like, I think I used this analogy last time, like a paper bag with 20 holes. So you've got a light inside a bag with these 20 holes, and the empty looking is that light coming out of the bag. And so when the hole moves, the light seemingly moves, but the light never really moves. The light is always still. And so when you begin to access this, it's like a massive expansion. Like you're no longer somebody. The character might come up and thoughts might come up, but you're no longer identified with that. You're that stillness which is experiencing itself, this infinite nature. And then that is what I think in Hinduism they called Shiva, like the consciousness, the empty looking. And then there's another part of meeting up with the Shakti, which is just as important, because of our society. Often the Shakti side, the love side, gets put down as less, because the feminine in our society is often thought as less. But actually the love side is equally as important. And it's sad that it's not spoken about so much in our society, and particularly in non-duality. And so what has to happen is that the masculine and the feminine have to meet, and that's when the love happens. So it's the union between the two, between the masculine and the feminine. But it's not like, so traditionally it's taught that the consciousness is prior to the love and the love is after. But
Is Shakti like the beingness?
Yeah, the beingness, yeah. Yeah, the love, the beingness, the aliveness. But it's actually that they're one and the same thing, a bit like the yin and the yang sign. So you know how you've got the yang is the black, I think, and then there's a white dot in it, and the yin, which is the feminine, is the white with a black dot in it. And this is what comes into union. And the Shakti side is everything, is love. It's the everything side. But that isn't secondary to the emptiness side. They have to come into perfect union. So it's often ignored. And yes, on the human level, it means, in a way, there's something about embodying all the senses. So it's the Shakti is found through all the senses. But it's not really found through all the senses like a personal thing, because the senses and the world are one and the same thing. So it's found in everything. Because you seemingly experience the world through the senses. So you know table through sight, through touch. You know food through smell, through taste, through sight. And we think that those senses are separate from the objects, but they're not really separate from the objects, the senses. So right now is you're looking at the computer. So you're looking at the computer and you're hearing me speak. There isn't actually a place where you end and the sight of me and the sound of me begins. And that is where you find the love. And it's very connected to the empty looking. They both have to come into union together, they're not apart. So but the empty looking is often revealed, the emptiness is often revealed first. And then there's this like divine love. It's his partner. Yeah. So it is to do with coming more and more seemingly into the body, But if we go more existential than that, it's not into the body, it's into everything, because the body is everything.
Yeah, that makes sense because I think my journey back into the body is still happening, and I never really appreciated before how much emotions can be stored in the body and muscles, or
Yeah,
and um, yeah, the kind of yeah, even though, like you say, it's not really through the senses and the body, but the body and the way that it's experienced can seem to block the experience of Shakti, like you call it. It
yeah,
seems like,
yeah,
and also for me, um, it's not like the. At first, I felt like the awakening experience was fading away, which is one where you could describe it like that. But what I think more, how I'd look at it now is that it kind of gets normalized. And instead of being like you were talking about the witnessing, when it first happened, I was really amazed and kind of was practicing staying in that place in a way. It's hard to talk about the words right, but and I was kind of witnessing everything else from a certain place. But like I've heard maybe you and other teachers talk about is then kind of going back into life. And so a lot of the time now I'll think a lot. There'll be quite a lot of thinking and there'll be emotions. And when they're all happening, I'm fully in the experience. There's not a kind of sat back, oh, there's a thought. There's at first
yeah,
there was a lot of looking and noticing everything, but then I think, like you said, maybe it all sort of merges together in the end. That's maybe where I could see it going.
yeah. And also, once you have this awakening, like life is so compassionate, what it does is it then brings about all the places of residue and old seeking patterns. So that's why sometimes people have these awakening and then maybe feel like they're losing it a bit or something, because actually what's happening is the body, I don't mean to say purified because that sounds really religious, but it's like energy is coming out of the body. And it really
Yeah,
is that it's about being in the experience, but not somebody in the experience. So it's like there's not a separation from the experience.
yeah,
So
yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And you call it love just because it feels like love to you.
that is the best way to describe it. So if we go more traditionally, so it's not like what I'm Lisa describing. Sorry, I just I
Yeah,
got hay fever. Well, it's a bit difficult, when you're giving a talk and then suddenly
yeah,
the bogies come. Yeah, yeah, the unrefinedness of these bodies. Um, so in India and in Sanskrit, or Nisargadatta Maharaj, he would say Sat Chitananda, which is when consciousness meets beingness, then it is bliss.
mm,
And bliss he describes as not a feeling. So that, I think, is love. I mean, it's always translation. But then blissfulness
mm,
appears in the person. And blissfulness is something that comes and goes. So blissfulness, the feeling comes and goes, but your essence as bliss, as love, doesn't come and go. But
mm.
you're more prone to have blissfulness when those two have met, because you're not caught up in so many stories. So then the body sort of radiates in a lot of bliss. So it's interesting because you get a lot of female teachers as called like the blissful mother. So you've got in India like Ananda Mahima. I don't know exactly the translation, but it's something like the blissful mother. And then you've got Ama, which is also bliss. It's interesting, isn't it? You don't get that so much with the male teachers. Like Nisargadatta wasn't called like the blissful father, but he does speak about bliss. But it often comes a lot more with the feminine teachers. Interesting.
Yeah,
The
the
way it
male
is.
female side of life is really interesting
Yeah.
play. Like I still don't really understand it all, but I think that's life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, pleasure, Sam. Yeah, lovely to hear your experiences.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so I take some written questions. Love is the absence of distant separation. Yeah. Okay, so we have some questions in Telegram. Hi Lisa, this is from Mariki. I have a question about moving forward on the spiritual path. I'm currently exploring the balance between following the natural flow and staying committed to a structured practice. How important do you think it is to engage in a disciplined daily spiritual practice, such as meditation or self-inquiry, done consistently and consistently? I don't know what that word is. Every single day, regardless of one's mood or state. In your experience, how essential is this kind of steady discipline for real progress on the path of spiritual awakening, while still remaining open to intuition and inner guidance? I'd be very happy for your perspective on that. So, I have multiple different answers to that. The first answer I will give, and these are all going to contradict themselves, and that is the nature of nonduality. The first answer I give is that this is really the pathless path. And what that means is that, well, firstly, you're an illusion, so who is going to do this practice to wake themselves up? Who do you imagine yourself to be to consistently do this practice? And where is this path that you've been doing every day? Who is that belonging to? So from this more absolute perspective, it's always questioning. Here it comes, everybody. Big sneeze. No, it's not. So it's always questioning, who are you? Who are you to do a practice, and where are you going to go? Isn't there always nowness? Isn't there always awakeness that's right here? This awake presence. And in that there is a story of somebody that's doing these practices. And then what happens is there's an identification with that person and a belief that that person is going to get it. But throughout all those practices there is awakeness, this pure alive freedom that's right here. Right here. Who is that? So, yeah, from that perspective, it's an idea, you doing a practice, and that is the very idea that's going to be popped. And then what you remain in is this pure awakeness. Awakeness. However, I'm aware that some people might hear that and misunderstand it and think that I'm saying don't do practice. And that's actually not what I'm saying. I'm questioning who is it that does practice. So Nisargadatta Maharaj, he would recommend the practice of staying in the I am. Ramana Maharshi would recommend practicing who am I. Ananda Mahima would practice keeping God close at all time and practicing japa, so repetition of God's name. So you've got all these different teachers that recommend different practices. So I'm not against that happening. And do I think they're beneficial? Well, it's a very tricky question, because beneficial for whom? It's not like lifting weights where you're like, okay, I'm going to lift a weight and my arm will get bigger. Like who is going to practice something to get somewhere? Who do you think you are? Who is going to arrive? So I feel what happens for most people on the path is that what happens in the personality structure is they get consumed by the notion of God, and then they think about it all the time. So whether that be through practice, whether that's through reading or satsang. So for most people, when they get consumed by this notion, they do practice. But it's like a catch-22. So let me put it another way. Imagine if you were asleep in bed and you're dreaming of a character at night. So you're dreaming of yourself in this dream reality. And in this dream reality, you begin to want to wake up or get the notion of waking up. So you meet someone that tells you that what you are is awakeness, you're nothing in the dream. So you are the wakeness, and you keep meeting this person, you keep going to satsang, and they teach you to keep asking who you are and keep putting your attention in consciousness, in your personal awareness. And the dream character does that, and it becomes obsessed with this subject and does everything to that. And then one day, suddenly you remember that you are asleep in bed and that you are only watching the dream. You're not the character in the dream. So there is a remembering that you are this consciousness that's watching the dream, and that you, as that consciousness, have created everything in the dream, and you're not the dream character. Who is it that did that? Is it you as the dreamer of the dream that woke the character up? Or is it the character through its efforts in the dream and through its practices in the dream that woke itself up? It's like a cycle, eh? What comes first? The chicken or the egg? So I'm not discouraging practice, but I don't feel the compulsion to tell you you're doing something right or you're doing something wrong as such. It's too simple. Who is it that wants that confirmation? And why does that person want that confirmation? And who is it that thinks that they are the one in the control of the practice? Thank you. Marika for the question. I'm just going to turn my video off so I can have a good old shake of the nose. let it all out. I actually, the other problem that I have when I do this talk here is it's in my friend's apartment. They have lots of rugs, and I'm actually allergic to dust mites. So that's actually part of the problem. It's also everything's pollinating, but it's actually the dust mites that are a real problem. Which is you can't get rid of dust mites. You always get them in carpets. It's not like there's something wrong with this place. It's just the nature of carpets. Okay. Hi Lisa. This is from Katie. I wonder if you could speak to how identity is formed around appearance, particularly as women. As I turn 35 and my skin changes and have also gained a bit of weight this year I am working to lose, my mind has a habit of being really critical of these things because it has been socialized to think being thin and youthful looking is part of my worth. Could you speak to this? Thanks. Yeah, thanks Katie for your question. Yeah, that's a really good question. So, being beautiful as a woman. So you kind of like the first thing is you acknowledged it correctly, that about worth. So the way that we seemingly function as humans is through reciprocity. So it's like through, I have some wheat flour and I'm going to exchange it for your fresh water. I don't know. We're exchangers. We're like little beavers. We collect all our little things like hamsters in our little pouches. And then we go to the market and we exchange it. And we also exchange it through looks, which is such a really weird idea. But animals do it too. You know, you've got the those birds where the males are really beautiful, I think, and then the female picks which one, and the males like do a dance for them. They're like, poop, poop. And then the female's like, which one to pick? So we also do it through looks, and we value women on the way they look, which is very interesting, right? We also value men on the way they look too. We value everybody on the way they look. And I suppose it's got something to do with money, like with wealth. You know, like if you've got money, then you maybe like attract a beautiful woman and then have beautiful kids. So there's like this whole money and wealth in it. And then it's maybe also something to do with fertility, like what's become beautiful. And then in the last 100 years, it's become very pedophilic. It's a very weird thing that's happened. I don't know how that's happened. Maybe it's also to do with like virgin or something, where we really appreciate skinny women that like have the body of a child, you know, like they're very skinny and without shape. Whereas when a woman, you know, has estrogen, they get plumpy because like lots of estrogen, because that yeah, that's what estrogen does. If you look it up, like, so you change, you know, when you 10, 12, 13, 14, whenever you begin to go through the change, you get more plumpy because of the estrogen. Yeah, and it's weird, in the last 100 years we've got to this notion of like this very skinny look on females and males as well. It's a weird thing. I'm sure there's like a whole study on it, and I'm sure a lot of the audience know way more information about why that is and why that's occurred. So because we have this trading nature, we also trade on looks, and we intuitively pick that up as a very young child. We pick up as a girl, as a very young child, as a girl, that our value is on the way we look. part of our value is on the way we look, and that this will help us with survival. We'll be able to attract a richer mate, and all these different stories. Just remember to mute yourself, please. Mute all. So that's what we get into our mind. And so then obviously, just like everything, just like money, house, possessions, clothes, we identify with it, and it's part of our safety and security. So we have the notion that if we're more beautiful and youthful, we will be more safe and secure in this society because we will have more value. Ironically, the safety is maybe not true, and the security is maybe not true. That's ironic. And the reason that is because like violence can happen to young, beautiful women. Jealousy can happen. Like, I don't know if it's necessarily like the most safe and secure role to have. You're most probably better in the middle, than being somebody that stands up above the crowd, because when you stand up against the crowd will quickly jump on the bandwagon of trying to bring you down. So it's an interesting position to be a very beautiful woman. And then the men might feel more insecure having a beautiful partner, so then they might become more controlling, over the woman and take away their freedom more. So there's all types of things that go on that aren't what we think is the way. But the biggest problem is the identifying with it. It's not necessarily the dance of being human, that's the dance of being human. It's the identity that is who I am, and without that, my freedom will be taken away. So it's the same with the house or with health. Without that, my freedom will be taken away. So we're associating the value of beauty or the value of being young with the freedom of who you are, with God. So you're valuing, you're mistaking that as a freedom. So then when that begins to be taken away from you, it really disturbs the seeker. The seeker is like, no, I must hold on to that, because without that I will not be loved by others. And that love by others is my freedom, is what frees me. But your freedom is presence. And the most beautiful woman there is, the most beautiful man there is the ones that are present. Their eyes. So that is the most beautiful thing. If you could keep yourself muted, I think that, Isabel, you keep unmuting yourself. I'm sure it's an accident, but it keeps happening. Oh, you've done it again. As soon as I mute you, you unmute yourself. Okay. Mute all. Okay. So freedom is not from a man finding you attractive or for other people finding you attractive. Freedom is from yourself, your soul, from who you are. It doesn't mean that you can't enjoy clothes, or you can't enjoy jewelry, or you can't enjoy colour. I love colour, but it's not your freedom. Your freedom is who you are. Always. And your beauty is the connection to who you are. That is the true beauty. It's always, the human always wants to be the most powerful, the most beautiful, the most rich, the biggest house, the best this, the best that. Always daydreams that that will free me. What will free you is what you are right now. What you are right now, here. Yeah. Yeah, is there anything else I want to say on that? Yeah, there's so much more that we could talk about on that level, but yeah, maybe that's all for now. Okay, Schumann, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, Lisa.
Hey, Schumann,
Hello.
nice to see you.
Yes, good to be here. Yeah, thank you for everything you said. All I wanted to bring up, it's just something that's going on in my life at present. Is it's just become like a determination that I can see that fear is it's a form of corruption, and to be really serious about love, because I just feel that that's what gives purpose and meaning to my life, is to be love, and that fear. Yeah, that I'm not born here to have fear, or even to compromise my integrity. And it's just, also some things have happened, like someone I knew who was of my age group. I knew him from university, and he got in touch with me quite recently. And then when I went to contact him again, I found out from his wife that he died. And it just brought home to me somehow that there's absolutely nothing to fear. I don't know why it came up, but it just brought home to the fact that there's absolutely nothing to fear.
Yeah.
And I was tested on that a little bit. I don't know if it was the whole test. I'm going through some kind of financial challenge, and also someone tried to play the part of the bully. But I just realized that there's just absolutely nothing to fear. But I don't know if I've realized it fully, because I am human, but it just, yeah, it just feels stronger and stronger.
Yeah,
Me.
there's absolutely nothing to fear of death. Life is going to do it all by itself for you. You don't need to put any effort to die. It will do it all by itself on the bodily level. But who you are never dies. Who you are is free. So there's two different types of fear. There's a natural fear. So say now if like one of those American bully dogs was running for you, there needs to be fear in order for your body to run inside away from the dog. So that's a natural fear. And then there is the seeking fear, which is this constant unrest because you perceive that you are separate, and then you're afraid of dying as that separate person. So there is this constant underlying fear. And then all your actions, or not all your actions, but a lot of your actions are governed by that. So in relationship, you're constantly trying to find security. You're constantly trying to find safety in job and money and circumstance and family. And that's the seeking fear. And there can be natural fear sometimes associated with those. It's hard to point out, but there's this seeking fear. And the seeking fear comes because you're not connected with who you are as consciousness. The more that you connect with who you are as consciousness, the less that seeking fear arises, and then the more that the fear of death, the existential fear of death, begins to disappear. You know, because who is it that dies? You, as consciousness, can never die. What dies is the body. There might be not wanting, not wanting the body to be in pain at points, but it's not a seeking energy anymore. The seeking is this existential energy, and it becomes this tension in the body. So you are always in anxiety and fear about everything that's happening, and that is illusory. Who is it that knows that? And then on the terms of death, like, everything is happening by itself. Like, you never have to talk yourself into digesting food or to breathing or to making the heartbeat. You think, or most people think, that they have to choose their work, they have to go to work, they have to speak to friends, they have to do it, and that they are the doer. But as that begins to diminish, you begin to see that everything is happening by itself, and that the death of the body will happen by itself at exactly the right time. You know, and it's all in God's hands. Like, it was so beautiful when Khaleesi died. She died, I think, about 4 months ago. This is my dog. I think you've met her before, haven't you, Khaleesi?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was so beautiful because it was so easy for her to die. Like, it was, I mean, we did put her down in the end. We got the vet out to put her down, so that makes it easier. But it was just so beautiful and so easy. Like, it's, we make it as such a big thing, but it's really such an easy thing to die. And the body kicks in, and when there's pain, the body kicks in and takes away that pain at a certain point. You go into the freeze phase. Your body freezes and it lets off opiums, I think, so that you don't feel that level of pain.
I think the sort of fears which are coming up are things, I mean, like loss of face, but that's not the real one which is coming up. The real one is, losing money, a lot of money. But I don't know, for some reason, what's also coming up is that even that there's absolutely nothing to fear.
It's the same as death. It's the same. Losing money, what it means to us on the human level is that you're closer to death, because the more resources you've got, the more food, water, shelter you've got. So losing money is very similar to dying, because we associate it as safety and security. So there really is nothing to fear. There's that really beautiful story about those two friends that are in the forest. Maybe you've heard this, in the jungle. Maybe you even know the story better than me. I know that you've studied Sanskrit. They're in the jungle meditating, and at one point, one of the friends says to the other friend, "We need to go back to the village to eat." And then the other friend says, "No, Krishna will provide." And he's like, "Krishna's not going to provide us food out here. We need to go back to the village to eat." And he's like, "Krishna will provide." So they sat there a bit longer, and then eventually the one that was agitated got up and walked back to the village for his dinner. And then he sat there and he was like, "Oh, my friend, he hasn't had dinner. I've got to take him food." So he went to his friend who was still meditating in the jungle and was like, here's your food. And the friend opened his eyes and said, "See, I told you Krishna would provide." It's like this trusting in God, it will provide.
And it's so true. I get the sense of how important it is to surrender, but I've also noticed that once the fear diminishes, it's like a realignment. Like how can I put it? When the fear disappears, it's like you become. It's like you've been reset, or you're more. How can I put it? It's like you're more in touch with home, or something like that.
That's the seeking fear. When the seeking fear begins to disappear, you're more in touch with her home. For most people, the core of the seeking is agitation. You could say, like Roger used to call it, like fear. Like the two movements are trying to avoid fear and trying to get to safety. And so the very core of the person is this agitation. It's like trying to get away from fear, trying to get away from pain, trying to get to safety. So the core of separation is, you could kind of say, fear, unsafety, agitation. And when that disappears, then underneath that there is your home, which is deep relaxation. And most people are operating from that fear all the time in conversation. You know, just when you meet a friend for dinner, you're acting slightly from that fear, you're becoming something, and then you're in a way encouraging that fear rather than being deeply rested in home, because you feel if you don't do that, they won't like you. And then again, it challenges your survival. If they don't like you, you might be kicked out of the group, and then you might die. So you then spend the whole dinner working to get them to like you and to love you, and it's kind of encouraging that fear. It's kind of relaxing it in some way. Like, you feel good, you know, you get the endorphins when they like you, but in another way it's like encouraging it, it's validating it that I am insecure here, I am unsafe, I'm not in God's home.
Yeah. I'm not in God's home.
Yeah.
and it just reminds me of the title of a book. The book is called Only Fear Dies, and that is the
Oh,
truth.
that's a really beautiful title, right? Only Fear
Yeah.
Dies. Yeah, really beautiful.
Only fear dies, and it's the truth. It's so true. Yeah. Oh, thank you
Only
very
Fear
much.
Dies. I love that, Schumann. What a beautiful title of a book. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it's so glorious, the sunshine. Sorry, I had to sneak that in.
Yeah,
The
no,
leaves
it
are
is.
coming out on the trees, and it's just so stunning.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, it's really, I keep going to the window because it's like beautiful blue sky, and then the trees are all this bright green. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Schumann. Bye.
Bye.
Only fear dies. Okay. See if we've got any other questions. No more questions maybe in here? Yes. What does the light coming through the hole in the bag represent? It represents love, big consciousness, infinity. How can we know, ML, how can we know for sure that consciousness is not a function of the brain? It could be a function of the brain. Like, we can't know that. But what is the brain and what is consciousness? But what we do know is that this, what's undescribable, is not separate. So even if we take consciousness out of the equation, this isn't separate. And it also, we're not sure what consciousness means. Like so Nisargadatta Maharaj would call it awareness. And he would say it's beyond consciousness. But I mean, it just doesn't matter. I know that sounds weird because I'm doing the consciousness teaching a lot of the time, but it's, in any way you look at it, this is a non-separate reality in that you can't die. Who you are cannot die. Who you are is all of this and none of this. So if consciousness, like the personal consciousness, comes from the brain, you're still that which is beyond the personal consciousness. In a way, personal consciousness is related to the brain because the movement, like consciousness doesn't really move. What moves is thought. It's a thought thing. So that moves, you move the attention. Like attention doesn't really move. what moves is your brain. Like if you imagine the light shining through the bag hole, and then you move the hole, and that's the movement of attention. It's your brain that's moving, it's not the attention that's actually moving. Yeah, so it doesn't really matter. But I know that most people, when they're waking up, you go through a stage of like really holding on to consciousness and the I am, and that becomes really important, and then you kind of are relaxing and dying into the I. Well, if I die as a person, then at least my consciousness will go on, so, but it's actually like letting go of all of it and realizing that you're the creator of all. And just coming back to that, this silence, this stillness, which is right here. What do each of the holes represent? To me, in the analogy, the hole represents the person. Yeah. Okay, so this is the last question for today. Hi, Lisa. I was wondering if you could please speak about self-rejection or self-judgment. I notice that when confronted with difficult feelings or being triggered, it's usually the self-judgment or self-rejection and clinging to this that prolongs the suffering. Could you please speak about this and how to engage our self-judgment? So there's two different things that you can do. You can work with the body and in the world. So thoughts are kind of stored in the body. So you change the body and you change the thoughts and the feelings. So you can do some somatic work or body work. But from a non-dual perspective, it's neti, not this, not that. So when the self-judgments are coming up, it's really seeing them for what they are, that they're not true. That is not who I am, and that is not a truth. And just really having clarity on that. What they do when they come up is they want to hook the attention. So they want the attention to follow it and be like, you're a bad person, you're this, you're that, and to follow it down those rabbit holes. And it's really staying clear, this isn't true. So you see it's not true, and then moving your attention back to what is true, which is presence. That presence is here. That's not true, and moving the attention back here. Okay, I'm having a bogey attack again. One moment. Sorry, I really should do sound as well, but there's too many microphones. Yeah. Yeah, not true, not this, not that. Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's so beautiful speaking with you. I really enjoyed that. It's such a joy sharing this message. It really is. It's all this energy wants to do is speak about God, I have to say. Is speak. Bathe in this. Yeah. Okay, so yes. So for those in Zoom, I will just go around and acknowledge everybody that is here. I so appreciate being here with you all. And if you want to join the Zoom meetings, then you can find that in my website. Okay, where are you? There's so many boxes open. Where are they? Yeah. So if you put your camera on, that's really beautiful. It won't be streamed onto YouTube. You also don't have to stay for it. You can also leave if you want. And if my eyes are moving, it's because your video is moving around the screen. Like when someone clicks off, it changes all the boxes. Yeah, thank you, Natasha. Fabian. Eric. Melody. Jurg. Peter B. Bodhidharma. Manuka. Brian C. Lena. Esbjorn. Then. Martin Thomas. Lee Ann. Matthew B. Rob C. Izzy. Tony. Govinda. Anchor. Petter. Lily. Stacy and Kat. Sorry, it's kind of funny angle. It's very sweet. Sorry, that's getting me somehow. To look at the cat. Sorry, that got me. Oh, that's so beautiful. Lindsay. Isabel R. Talia. Malfred. Schumann. Alfreda, Dita, sorry, Alfreda. ML. Did anyone I didn't do? Because of the Emma. I didn't do Emma. Emma. Yeah, just give me a wave if I haven't done you, because sometimes the videos change, you know? Oh yeah, I didn't do Diraj. I'm so sorry. Diraj. Yeah, I so appreciate you people, really appreciate that. It's so beautiful sharing in this. Well, what lovers we all are, lovers of truth. Yeah, thank you everyone. So, bye in Zoom, lots of love. And so you on YouTube. Yeah. I don't know how many people have made it to this part. They don't like going through all the names. Yeah, to those on YouTube, I really, really wish you everything. Yeah, not one or two or three things, but every God-blessed thing. Somebody wrote to me asking me to change it to God-blessed thing. Yeah. Yeah, I really wish you everything. Bye.